Welcome to my channel. Very good news. I got a very well-paying customer who said, I want to learn everything about flying. I told him this is fine, but one condition, please. We need to record those videos so that we can share them with the rest of the world on YouTube. If you accept, then that will be great. And then he said, yeah, there should be no problem. Now we are going to ask him one more time. Please shake your hands if you accept those videos to be recorded and put on YouTube. Oh yeah, thank you for the confirmation. So let's begin. Now this will be a long series of videos about flying. It will cover so many things, flying theories and aircraft, and not only one type of aircraft. So we will start with this type of aircrafts, and then hopefully in the future videos move to different type of aircrafts, covering also the commercial ones like the Boeing and the Airbus. But let's take it a step at a time, and the customer is saying, I will be paying whatever you want as you can make those videos fun, because flying is not only about the technology part of the aviation, but also the enjoyment of being in the sky and monitoring and seeing the world from up. So we promised him, yeah, this is great. And then he said, fine, then whatever you want, send me the check and I will pay. So yes, that's great. Now, when I'm planning to create this flight school for this single customer, and the rest who are enjoying watching this hopefully on YouTube, the first two questions we wanted to answer are what aircraft we use for this training as a start. You know, maybe in the future videos I will use a different aircraft, but which kind of initial aircraft that is really good. And then I selected this, which is the Piper Warrior 2. It's the PA-28, and this model number specifically is 161. Now, why did I select this specific model? Because this aircraft in real life is used by pilots, training by trainers to really train new pilots. So as you can see, even this aircraft is dirty because it's used all the day to train pilot students. In comparison to other options inside the Microsoft Flight Simulator, there is one which is used a little bit. It's called the Cessna 152, but I didn't want to select that one simply because the Cessna 152 is a kind of a slightly forgiving. So it's not very much realistic in compared to this one. So this is one you feel it heavy when you are flying it. You feel it as kind of an aircraft. So taking off, flying, landing with this aircraft in the simulator is very well simulated to mimic the real life scenarios for flying a similar aircraft. So this is first, question. Now the second one, which is, where are we now? In which aircraft, in which airport we want to run this training? Now this is why. Let me show you here. So I have here little nav map, which is a software. I will use it a little bit during this series of videos to show a little bit on the map the location of the aircraft and give some perspectives. So myself, I enjoy living in Dubai, so this is my home. But now we are in here, which is in San Francisco. Where is it? We are here. And we have selected one airport. I will show it to you. All right, which is this Oakland International Airport. Now, why did we select this airport in specific? If we zoom a little bit, we can see first it has a number of runways of different length. So this is a long runway relatively, and these are shorter runways with different angles. And not only that, the angle of the runway, like this is 30 from this side, which means 300 degrees from the magnetic north. And because it's 30, when we take off, we will remember more, because we will be doing so many takes off, so many landings, etc. It will be easier to turn 90 degrees, come back, especially when we want to do patterns. And because of on this side also, this runway, it has C. So when we are flying this direction in here, we can look at our left, and it will be relatively easier for us to see the runway, so that we can fly parallel to the runway to come and have the downwind and land. All right, now one more thing about it. This area is very beautiful in San Francisco. And this is the San Francisco Bay area, which is very famous. And this is the San Francisco city. And this is San Francisco International Airport. So we have a number of airports as well around us, and multiple beautiful bridges. So when we are flying here, hopefully we can enjoy a beautiful scenery outside when we are doing IFR flying. Now this training will teach both, VFR and IFR, not any of the two. So we will be flying, we will learn all the instruments, but we will explain a little bit the variation between VFR and IFR. So again here, for simplicity, VFR is flying by visual rules, whereas IFR is flying by the instrument rules, which are the technology used. So you can basically fly based, if you have no view outside, you are more entitled to fly by depending on the readings, but with VFR you need to see and follow a pattern. All right, so coming here and flying by VFR, we were gonna enjoy those views, because we can fly next to the seashore in here, cow, and come back, etc. Good, now let's begin our first lesson. Okay. So the first lesson is here, is the essentials of, how aircrafts fly. Now, as you may see, the assumption of these workshops, because this is the first video, part one, we assume that you have no idea about how aircraft even fly. So if you follow those from the part one up to the series of the videos in the future, hopefully you can learn and enjoy not only how aircrafts operate, but also how you can fly aircraft using Microsoft Flight Simulator. In the future videos also, I did not mention it, but I'm sure you will demand covering how to use Microsoft Flight Simulator itself to fly aircraft, and I will cover those as well in future videos. So now I will do one video at a time, and in every video I will cover a nice concept. I will avoid making these workshops or these trainings videos boring by focusing mostly on the theory like how the physics work, etc. I will mention a little bit some of the concepts, but I will try my best to enjoy with you the experience of starting an aircraft, flying, and enjoying the view from outside. But of course we will use the technology as it's supposed to be. So we don't want to use this as a game or as a toy, rather than blended enjoyment plus the science part of the aviation industry. Great, now let's begin. So we are inside the aircraft. Thank you for your generosity for funding this entire project, our first nice customer. So you can shake your hands if you are happy. Yeah, great. Thank you very much for the confirmation. So now let me go outside the aircraft and start talking about the aircraft. So what do we have here? It's aircraft, and let's look carefully. Similar concept. I mean, this aircraft is similar to other aircrafts which can be bigger, like even the Airbus A380, and this one. They share the same concept in terms of how these aircrafts really fly. So this is the body of the aircraft. We have two wings in here, two back wings, and we're going to cover those in details for the stabilization of the aircraft. So let's come from this side and see this aircraft. So we need to make this object fly. Why this object now does not just go inside the air and fly by itself is simply because it has a weight, right? And this weight, based on physics, is equal to the mass of the aircraft multiplied by the gravity. So because, of course, the amount of force that pushes the aircraft on the ground is equal to the mass multiplied by the gravity. And this is why the gravity is quite relatively constant across the planet Earth. And this is why, this aircraft will weigh approximately similar to what it will weigh in different parts of different locations. Great. Now, so this is the force which is acting from the top. And of course, based on Newton's theory, for every action, there is an equal reaction. So the ground itself here is strong enough to support by pushing up an equal amount of force, which is to balance the aircraft so that the aircraft will stay stable here. It will not move. So action, reaction, stability. If you remove the action, there will be no reaction. It's not like actively. So the forces are due to each other and they cancel each other. This is why we don't have any motion. Good. Now, how can we make then, in this case, this aircraft fly? Now, the entire design of the aircraft is to make it in a way that's aerodynamic in a way so that it can have the most flexible model to fly, and not only to fly, more important than flying it is to be able to control it and stabilize it in the air. So let's talk about first how we can have this aircraft fly and how does it fly. Now, assume we take this aircraft and we push it forward. Once we push it forward, what will happen, air will flow below the wings and the body of the aircraft, and air will flow also above the aircraft. The air will fly below the aircraft and above there. Because of the shape of the aircraft, there will be more air flying below and less air flying above. And because of that, there will be more dense air under the aircraft. So there will be the air will be more dense under in comparison to the above. And because of the higher pressure below and lower pressure above, that generates a force, upward force. We call this force the lift. And if you want to see an example why things move from high density pressure to low pressure, as an example, take a balloon. After you inflate it, if you even put something inside it, if you open the balloon, you'll find the material inside the balloon or the gases or whatever, they tend to move from the high pressure to low pressure. So anything that has high pressure, low pressure, this is how even the tire inside your car is. Once it has a leak, because it has, why the air outside does not go inside the tire if it has a hole, is simply because the pressure inside the tire is way higher than the pressure outside, and things move from high pressure to low pressure. So the concept of flying is then simple. We create higher pressure area under the aircraft in comparison to the area above the aircraft, and this will create an upward force, because the aircraft will tend to move from the where it is right now, because there is high pressure in here, low pressure in here, and then the aircraft will lift up. And that force needs to be equal to the force that is pushing the aircraft down, which is the mass of the aircraft multiplied by the gravity. Simple, right? Now, and because of course now the amount of force pushing the aircraft down depends on the weight of the aircraft. Here where we see, of course, the heavier the aircraft, it will need more upward force to lift it, right? Which is very logical. Now, how can we make the aircraft now move? Now, this is the question. Oh, so we need now something to push the aircraft forward. We use this. Okay, we use the propeller and we put an engine for the aircraft. Now, how do those work? Same concept, because when this propeller turns clockwise, so the propeller turns clockwise from the direction of the pilot, when it will push air this way, right? So when air moves this way, there will be more dense air here and less dense air here. This is low pressure, this is high pressure, and objects move from high pressure to low pressure. So this will generate a force that pushes the airplane forward. Great. And we call this force thrust. Good. Now, this is how we generate force that can push the aircraft forward. So it's the same concept of the lift, as also we are using air to create a force that will push the aircraft forward. Now, once we push the aircraft forward, why the aircraft itself does not move immediately with very high speed? Because there is some force, which we call it the drag force. And that drag force, it depends also on the shape and the weight of the aircraft. When we say here the weight is when it is on the ground, because there is also friction of the tires with the ground. But when it is in the air, it's mostly related to the aerodynamic shape of the aircraft. And that one will resist the movement of the aircraft to the front, to forward. And this is why here thrust pushes the aircraft to the front, and then drag resists it. And the net force will be, of course, more. This is why the engine should be more powerful. And then it will move the aircraft forward. Now, if we move the aircraft forward with very slow speed, it will not have enough, variation in the pressure between up and down, and it will not generate enough force to lift the aircraft to fly. But once the aircraft speed reaches a certain speed, there will be enough force to lift the aircraft above the ground. And this is the takeoff speed for any aircraft. Now that will depend, of course, on the weight of the aircraft, how much mass it has, and that's why, of course, bigger aircrafts needs bigger engines, and these kind of aircrafts needs this kind of engine, right? Great. So now I think this gave us the essentials of the four forces we were talking about. So there is a downward force, there is an upward force generated by the differences in the pressure of the air under the shape of the aircraft. So what creates the lift is not only, of course, the wings, but also under the aircraft. So the entire aircraft is a wing. Great. And this is what generates the uplift, and what can help the aircraft to move forward is the propeller, because the propeller is connected to the engine, and it's the same concept of the high pressure, low pressure that makes the aircraft move forward. Great. Amazing. So now the aircraft can fly. But what is important, and this is maybe you feel sad for those who were working a while, hundreds of years back, on doing or creating the first aircrafts. Maybe they struggled with something. They created or they made objects that are able to fly, but it was hard for them to control them inside the air. Because once the aircraft is inside flying, if it changes the angle a little bit, the entire formula will change, which is the angle of attack. So if the aircraft moves a little bit, this moves up, this moves down, or the other way around, or it rotates, the entire amount of lifts will change. And this is why the aircraft can fall off the sky if it does not generate enough lift to keep the aircraft in the sky. This is why the design of the aircraft is key, and it has a specific parts inside the aircraft that can help the pilot steer the aircrafts in the air, and control it so that they can take it inside the air by, taking off from a certain airport and coming back and land the aircraft. So we need to be able to control flying it, taking off, taking it into the air, flying it, and then taking it down and landing it safely on the runway. And doing that repetitively and with minimal risk. And this is what can create a good airplane. So in the remaining part of this video, I will explain the 3 instruments that are used to control how the aircraft changes position inside the air. Now, if we look at the aircraft from the back, so first, if you can see, the aircraft needs to move inside the air in 3 dimensions, right? So there is this first dimension, and let's call it, if you want to move the front of the aircraft up, and this is down, and this is what we refer to as, elevation of the aircraft. So if we move this, the nose down, we point the aircraft down, and then we try, and then by this we may point it down so it flies down, and then it loses elevation in this case, right? And this is how we call it elevation. And to use and what elevation we use this part in the aircraft. So this is what's called what? The elevator. Now, and the elevator has this part that is dynamic to help us control the aircraft in terms of up and down. And you can imagine now when it moves into this way, and you can try to imagine when you move it this way, more air will hit the aircraft from below. And when air hits the aircraft from below, this part, the back of the plane, will go up and the front of the aircraft will go down. So by this we call it nose down. And of course the opposite part is instead of, and this is what we call it nose up. So this is how we point the aircraft up. This is how we point the aircraft down. And this is how we control elevation. Great. Second one. So this is control it in, up and down this way. Second part is, see it? Oh, so this controls the yaw, which is like turning, the aircraft this way and that way. Because once we move this, we call it the rudder. Once we move it this way, air will hit the aircraft this way, and then this back of the plane will move left, the nose of the plane will move right. And this we call it yawing. The last one is rotation, okay, which is we control it using what? The ailerons, which are, if you look here, similar. So if we are into this position, you notice here one move the up and the second one moves down. So once we are in here, air will come to this wing from putting it from the top, and it will push the wing down. So this wing move down, this wing will move up, and you notice here, so the air will push this one from below. So the wings, this one will move down, this one will move up, and then the aircraft will rotate to the right. When it rotates to the right, there is a tendency for this part as well to cooperate with it. We'll explain this in the future, and then the aircraft can turn right in this case. And this is how we can change the direction of an aircraft. And of course here the opposite is also the same. So now this will move the right wing the way we see it up, and then here we can turn left. So these are the 3 main instruments we use to control the aircrafts when we are flying. Great. This is the rudder, and this is the rudder, and we control this using these pedals, if you can see here. Now we'll explain this in the future a lot. So there are wires in these aircraft. So there is a wire that when I push this is why without electricity, when I push it, so there is a direct wire, metal wire, that connects with this back part of the rudder, and it moves it. The same as with the ailerons also here. Okay, if I show you this, so when we move this left, when we move it right, okay, when we go outside the aircraft, if it is now moved to the left, you see how, and then when we move it right, and also this happens by wires. When we move it forward, you can see, okay, this is the elevator, and when we move it backward like this, it goes the opposite direction. All this happens by wires. Why? This is maximum reliability. Of course, modern aircraft, they can have electrically controlled sometimes, but I think a lot of aircraft still use wires because they are like the most reliable. And not only that, there is something which is even cannot be simulated now on an aircraft. Now when you are flying an aircraft and you push this forward, you can feel the resistance yourself because it needs force to push it. And once the aircraft is more aggressively reacting, you will feel the aircraft is pushing you back, and then you apply more force. And here where the experience of flying an aircraft that can be never simulated using a flight simulator. Great. Now in the next video we will cover additional topics and we will start to fly. So we will see how additional controls can be used to tune the aircraft, because those ones we can, like the thing that we can use to steer the aircraft, but how we can have a straight flight, we will cover that, like the trimming of an aircraft. And also in the next video we will start by starting the engine and doing our first takeoff and flying. But every concept, as we mentioned, we are going to take our time and we will have a separate video for it. I hope you enjoyed this video, part 1, and please don't forget to subscribe and wait for video 2, which is supposed to be ready very soon. In case, unless it's not ready, depending on when you are watching this video. Stay safe, and again I would like to thank our VIP customer for the funding of this entire series of videos, and looking forward to meeting you in the future videos. Bye bye, stay safe.